On a Saturday night in October. An original short story by Jared I. McGee. I was never shy. Then again, I was never not shy either. When you move a lot, you tend to learn to be something of a malleable personality type. Does the new school in Clinton, Arkansas call for the quiet kid? Great. I'm the quiet kid. Does the new school in Jessup, Missouri call for the brash, headstrong, but kind-hearted kid? Great. I'm the brash, headstrong, but kind-hearted kid. Let the descriptions and possibilities flow on. I became a chameleon. I am a chameleon. So, on a random Saturday night in October, the air just crisp enough to collect exhalation and throw it out in a cloud to let me know that yes, despite my feeling otherwise, I'm still alive. I went to a small town bar. This event was news, as I had long since stopped being that guy upon moving to my new job, simply because I was trying to be the mature guy that's disconnected from his coworkers but utterly dedicated to his job and his family. That was the guy this place needed. At the time, anyway. Here, I was shy. Or, at least to the 60 people that thought they knew me, I was shy. The problem with being all people is that, from time to time, some major life event causes a schism between the person you're supposed to be, the person you've signed on to be in a new life, and you are left wearing a life squirming into a self that is too small. It becomes restrictive, constrictive. I drank a coffee, small with just the smallest dash of cream, in preparation for what would be an uncomfortable evening out. Caffeine would fuel this evening of potential rebirth into something and someone new. This in and of itself was a deviation from my norm, as I'd stopped ingesting caffeine after 4 p.m. 3 years ago. Current me, now past me, was a healthy me that got plenty of sleep. By the time I wandered into Revere's, the local watering hole, it was already 8:30. The place was packed, shoulder to shoulder, and I quickly and uncomfortably shuffled over to the corner where I saw my 8 colleagues. They had been drinking for hours, having been taking in college football and enjoying one another's company for at least a handful of hours at this point. I immediately began trying to feel out who I might be able to become to and for these people. Here. Now. Should I let loose, toss down shot after shot, and transition into a wild, loud party boy? I've been him before. People liked him a lot. At least they did in my younger years. A mid-30s, wild, loud party boy often comes off as sad, so this choice seemed a bit unseemly. Should I be the responsible, higher-ranking coworker? Just be aloof and try to be some quasi-bigwig that is above all this fun and revelry? No, that is not, by any means whatsoever, who I am. Even if this were the guy that these people wanted or knew, I didn't feel like devolving that far from who I was. The conversation was fast-paced and bumbling, like most drunken chats. They were leaping across canyons of football scores to their love lives or lack thereof. They were jolting from those lit-up Tinder hookups to the Soup Nazi episode of Seinfeld. At least I could enjoy the poor impressions of Jerry, Kramer, and crew. Seinfeld gave way to darts and pool, my colleagues wandering from dartboard to pool table, table to board, board to table. Their gaming ADD kept them moving. All games were left half finished. Party guy was out. Snooty boss was out. My chameleoning was going rather poorly this evening. Throughout all of it, Snapchat was the main focus of most of the gathered few. Living their lives as if they mattered in the grand scheme of the world, showing them off. Yet, they persisted in spite of them not. Maybe this was part of the problem. A false veneer of a life lived through mobile technologies was much more difficult to navigate, as it was ever shifting. In one photo, we were crazed, licentious drunks. In one video, we were dart champions. In another photo, we were austere adults posing on a fun night out. In another video, we were rock stars, singing Journey at the top of our lungs. But that was part of my new problem. With the end of the life I wanted came the realization that, in the 5 years I was working toward engagement with my would-have-been fiancé, the world I'd immersed myself in had tilted. I was so busy maintaining the person I was then, and the relationship I held in such high regard, that I never saw her becoming quite the chameleon herself. Though she bashed the people that surrounded us nonstop, she chose fucking coworkers and deriding our life to her girlfriends when we two were not together. What can I say? I let my guard down. I did not see her popping in and out of often conflicting roles, just like I always had, though I'd always done so out of fight for survival. She did so to further her agenda, be it for forward progress in her job or so she could have a cock in her that night. I honestly don't know. Because this wasn't her. This wasn't the person I knew. Maybe she was out chameleoning me. My thoughts became more and more hateful there in that bar. Maybe I could be the hateful asshole, abusive in language and general demeanor. I had only been him once or twice in my 30-something years on this planet. Admittedly, it was not fun. Admittedly, it did have an element of catharsis to it. Hitting, cursing, tearing people down with words and deeds. God, just to put a beer bottle across the back of that fucker's head that smiled and scraped and bowed and laughed and cheered with me after he'd had the woman I'd planned on marrying sucking his cock. Seeing his teeth angle in unnaturally after I landed 6, 10, 19 heavy punches to his face before the people around me could react and act to pull me off of him. Ooh, yeah. I wanted to make people bleed. This was a skin I had not worn in far too long. I loved to hit people. I loved to hurt people when I became this guy. I was an unnatural force. I could tear people apart. No. I was better than that. And this is not who I was. Had I lost my talent? Had I matured out of my superpower? That's what I'd always thought of my ability to navigate any and all social situations. Was this a form of cowardice? I couldn't quite figure it out. I smiled awkwardly, holding the one beer that I'd held all night. I didn't want to lose any of my poise to the dampening nature of alcohol. Tonight, I would be the calm side friend that people felt sorry for, that people felt like they were doing a favor for inviting the poor, broken guy. That's who I'd be tonight, largely going unnoticed. 8:30 quickly became 10:30, and those 2 hours were all spent wholly in my own head trying to figure out who I could become, as well as a vehicle exit strategy. So it comes to this. One doesn't need rest. Why bother about sleep if one isn't sleepy? That stands to reason, doesn't it? Wait a minute. There's a snag somewhere, something disagreeable. Why now should it be disagreeable? Oh, I see. It's life without a break. I laughed at my remembrance of Sartre. I'd read that play a lifetime ago, yet it came to me now as myselves failed me. All those boys, all those men I had been or planned to be marching out of me into the night and leaving an empty vessel, incapable of finding purchase or solid ground on which to stand. I was everyone. I am no one. The walking dead. A shadow. And dawn was approaching. Three of the 8 decided to leave at 10:30, so I was blessedly given my out from Revere's. The farewells were kind-hearted. There were a great many fist bumps, handshakes, back pats. As I walked away, I realized how ghostly I was, that I was already non-existent to these people who had loved who I'd been, and who I'd been was the man that was with a beautiful, social woman. That is who they wanted. The one person I could not be. That is who I wanted. As I drove home, writing poetry in my head, I realized that my problem that night had been that after so many years of faking and juking and jiving and protecting the real me, I'd shown him to someone, and he'd been eviscerated and thrown into the gutter, thought of as worthless, never to return. My empty house was more comfortable than it had been in months. I missed my old life, my dog, my things, myself, her, of course. But this was appropriate. A vacant, nondescript place reflective of the specter residing within. I went through my albums and surrounded myself with pictures of better times and better me's. An athlete, a musician, an unwavering friend, a respected academic, a caring partner, a doting son, a loving dog owner. So many people that were worthwhile and even worthy of a level of celebration. My temazepam was sitting on my bookshelf near my shabby blue couch, as it always was now that I couldn't work up the courage to sleep in what was our bedroom. 15 milligrams at 11:15. That was much later than when I normally took it. I read my Bible for the first time in years. 30 milligrams at 11:35. I made my way around the house. I'd actually given it a good deep clean earlier in the day. Everything was in its place. Everything consisting of the skeletal remains of a life picked clean. 60 milligrams at 11:45. I typed out a couple quick emails. Man, was it ever surprising that these things were not kicking in yet. 900 milligrams at 12:01. One quick glass of good Tullamore Dew whiskey was a way to get myself to sleep on top of all these little pills. This is the guy that was needed right now. By everyone. I'd give people something to talk about. Something to bond over. Instead of being the charity case, I could become the galvanizing, so sad story that people could tell for a few months before they'd move back to their laughing and fucking and beers and scraping for some meaning in their lives. I could hold the place. I could be their meaning. I would give of myself to help others. It felt right. And I had never, ever been shy. Not when I knew full well who I needed to become. Thank you for listening to On a Saturday Night in October. All the tracks you hear in the background of this story come from freesound.org, a wonderful organization that, if you haven't checked it out by now, you really should. They provide this show and a great many others with wonderful sound effects and backing tracks. I am also a member and I provide free sound effects to the world as well. That does it for Prose this week, and I hope you enjoyed these stories. Again, they are based on Inktober prompts, so if you're following along, try to guess at what else is in store from Prose in the coming weeks. Well, I hope you can join me in 2 weeks' time for the next episode of Prose. As always, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for your listening to my program. Please feel free to reach out via prosepodcast@gmail.com, Twitter, Instagram, or any other way you see fit. I would love to hear from anyone, particularly those that are taking me up on this challenge and trying to create for 31 straight days. Again, thank you for listening to Prose. Take care of one another, go live an amazing story all your own, and I will see you in 2 weeks.